It's 11 at night. Tomorrow, you have that important deadline. You've known about it for weeks, yet here you are, frozen in front of the screen, with that familiar knot in your stomach. It's not the first time, and you already know it won't be the last. There's something deeply troubling about procrastination. It's not simple laziness. It's not lack of ability. It's something more subtle. It's the way our mind constantly plays games with time, with discomfort, with the uncertainty of our own future. Today, we'll explore together the psychological and philosophical structure of this phenomenon. We'll do a serious look into what it means to be a human being who must face their own future, their own limits, and that strange ability to sabotage what we say we want. We'll understand why your brain seems to work against you, what really happens in those moments when you choose distraction over action, and most importantly, how to build a different relationship with your own decisions. Stay with me, because what we'll discover concerns the very nature of how humans construct their lives, one choice at a time. The neural battlefield. Let's be precise what we're talking about. Procrastination isn't simply putting off an activity. It's the conscious choice to delay an action we recognize as important, even though we know this delay will hurt us. We know what we should do. We know that not doing it will damage us, yet we choose not to do it anyway. This paradox tells us something essential about human nature. Your brain operates on two completely different time systems, and they're in constant conflict. The limbic system lives in an eternal present. For this ancient structure, only right now exists immediate pleasure, immediate pain, immediate survival. This system evolved over millions of years when our ancestors needed to respond instantly to threats and opportunities. See food? Eat it now. See danger? Run now. There was no later in the evolutionary environment that shaped this part of our brain. The prefrontal cortex, by contrast, is your time-traveling machine. This remarkable evolutionary development lets you imagine yourself in 6 months, delay gratification for larger rewards, and construct complex plans across years. It can build entire futures in your mind and work systematically toward them. Here's what makes this battle so unequal. The limbic system is fast, automatic, and energy efficient. It operates below conscious awareness, making split-second decisions without your input. The prefrontal cortex is slow, deliberate, and consumes enormous amounts of glucose. It's like comparing a reactive guard dog to a chess grandmaster. One responds instantly. The other needs time and energy to think. When you're tired, stressed, hungry, or emotionally depleted, the prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline. The ancient system takes over by default. This is why you can have perfect clarity about your goals in the morning, only to find yourself scrolling through social media by evening instead of working. You haven't changed your mind. A different part of your brain has simply taken control. What neuroscience reveals is even more unsettling. Researchers have put people in brain scanners and asked them to think about themselves in various scenarios. When people think about their present self, certain neural patterns activate. When they think about themselves in 6 months or a year, completely different areas light up, the same areas that activate when thinking about strangers. Your future self is, neurologically speaking, someone else. This isn't metaphor. Your brain literally processes future you the same way it processes other people. When you procrastinate, you're not betraying yourself. You're delegating problems to what feels like another person. And just like you might not feel guilty about leaving dirty dishes for a roommate, you don't feel the full weight of leaving problems for this stranger who happens to share your name. This temporal dissociation, it's reinforced every time we procrastinate. We train our neural pathways to treat our future self as someone we don't need to protect or care about. The more we procrastinate, the wider this gap becomes until our future feels completely abstract and unreal. The architecture of avoidance. Now we need to examine the deeper structures. Procrastination has roots that extend into the fundamental conditions of human existence. Understanding these roots changes everything about how we approach the problem. The first root is what I'll call existential fear. This isn't fear of the task itself. It's fear of confronting the boundary of your own potential. As long as a project remains undone, it exists in the realm of infinite possibility. You can imagine it being brilliant, revolutionary, exactly what you want it to be. You can tell yourself and others about this amazing thing you're going to create. The moment you actually create it, it becomes finite, real, subject to judgment, both from others and, more painfully, from yourself. What if it's mediocre? What if you discover that your best effort falls short? What if the gap between your vision and your ability is wider than you thought? Procrastination becomes a shield protecting the fantasy of unlimited potential. It preserves the comforting story that you could be great if you tried. Actually trying means risking the discovery that maybe you can't. This is why procrastination often hits hardest on projects that matter most to your identity. The stakes are too high. Better to preserve the possibility than face the limit. The second root is what appears as perfectionism, but functions as something else entirely. The perfectionist claims they can't start because conditions aren't ideal. Not enough time to do it right. Wrong tools. Wrong mental state. Insufficient research. The moment is never quite right. But perfectionism isn't really about high standards. It's a preemptive defense against vulnerability. If you hold yourself to impossible standards, you never have to face the exposure of putting something imperfect into the world. You can always say, "I would have done it," but circumstances weren't perfect. This protects you from the more frightening admission, "I did my best, and it wasn't enough." Real excellence emerges through iteration, creating something flawed and refining it. Perfectionism blocks you from ever entering this cycle because you refuse to produce that first imperfect version. It's not ambition. It's paralysis disguised as standards. The third root involves our peculiar relationship with temporality itself. Humans are the only animals aware of their own death, the only ones who must construct meaning within a limited time frame. This awareness creates what we might call temporal anxiety. Every choice closes other possibilities. Every moment that passes can't be recovered. Committing to work on one project means not working on dozens of others. Choosing one path means watching other paths disappear. This carries existential weight. Every action is simultaneously a renunciation of what you're not doing. Procrastination attempts to suspend this inexorable forward movement, to keep all possibilities open, to avoid the finality of choice. As long as you don't choose, you could still do anything, still be anyone. The moment you commit, you acknowledge your limitations as a finite being with finite time. There's a fourth element, temporal discounting. This is the human tendency to value immediate rewards far more than future ones, even when future rewards are objectively larger. Offer someone $50 today or $100 in a year, and most choose the immediate option, despite the mathematical irrationality. Evolutionarily, this makes sense. For most of human history, the future was uncertain. You might not survive to see tomorrow. Immediate rewards were genuinely more valuable. But in modern life, where most of us can reasonably expect to be alive next year, this ancient bias becomes destructive. When facing the choice between immediate pleasure and distant benefit, your brain assigns vastly more weight to what's right in front of you. The future reward feels abstract, hypothetical, almost imaginary. Present pleasure is visceral and real. Your neural architecture wasn't designed for delayed gratification across months or years. The motivation trap. We arrive now at a crucial realization. It will change how you approach this entire problem. Most people conceive of procrastination as a motivation deficit. They think, If only I felt more motivated, I could do what I need to do. This understanding is not just incomplete, it's backwards. The common conception of willpower imagines it as a kind of mental muscle that can be trained and strengthened. We picture disciplined people as having more of this resource and blame ourselves for having less. This is mythology, not psychology. Research reveals that willpower is a severely limited resource that depletes rapidly throughout the day. Psychologists call this ego depletion. Every decision you make, what to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first, whether to check your phone, draws from the same finite pool of mental energy. By evening, you've made hundreds or thousands of micro-decisions. Each one has depleted your capacity for self-regulation. This is why resisting procrastination is harder at night than in the morning. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles executive function, is one of the most energy-intensive parts of your brain. When cognitive resources run low, it simply stops functioning effectively. Relying on willpower is betting your success on a resource that's guaranteed to run out precisely when you need it most. Here's the paradigm shift. Motivation doesn't precede action. It follows it. This inverts everything we've been taught. We imagine motivation as the fuel that powers action, but the causality runs the opposite direction. Think about experiences where you really didn't want to start something, but forced yourself to begin anyway. Within minutes, you are completely engaged. That's not because motivation mysteriously appeared. It's because action generated the neurochemical state we interpret as motivation. Movement creates dopamine, which creates the sensation of wanting to continue. You can't think your way into motivation. You can only act your way into it. This means we need to abandon the strategy of waiting to feel ready and instead build systems that generate action regardless of how we feel. The goal isn't becoming someone who always wants to work. It's becoming someone who works regardless of wanting to. The practical architecture. Let's translate understanding into practice. These aren't tricks or hacks. They're structurally sound tools that address the deep mechanisms we've been examining. First, reduce the activation threshold to 0. Starting requires enormous activation energy. The strategy isn't gathering more energy, but making the threshold so low it becomes impossible to resist. The starting action must be genuinely, almost absurdly small. Not I'll write the chapter. I'll open the document and type the title. Not I'll work out for an hour. I'll put on my gym shoes. Not I'll study for 2 hours. I'll open the textbook to page 1 and read 1 paragraph. This works because action fundamentally changes your mental state. Once you've started, your brain switches from avoidance mode to completion mode. There's a psychological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect. People remember uncompleted tasks better than completed ones because the brain maintains low-level anxiety about unfinished business. Start something trivially small and let your brain's natural drive for completion pull you through. Most people fail here by setting goals that still feel like goals. I'll just write for 10 minutes is still too large if you're in resistance. I'll write 1 sentence works better. I'll open the document is even better. Remove every possible justification for delay. Second, engineer your environment, not your willpower. Your actions aren't primarily products of conscious choice. They're responses to environmental affordances. Your surroundings suggest, enable, and make certain behaviors nearly inevitable. This is choice architecture. Phone on the nightstand means you'll check it upon waking. Not because you lack discipline, because the environment has made that action the path of least resistance. Your hand reaches automatically before your conscious mind engages. Design your environment so desired actions become easiest. Phone in a drawer in another room. Desk empty except for the single thing you're working on. Computer with distracting websites blocked during work hours using tools like Freedom or Cold Turkey. Delete social media apps, or at minimum log out to create friction. The most disciplined people aren't exercising superhuman self-control. They've arranged their lives to rarely require self-control. They've removed temptation rather than trying to resist it. Every successful resistance depletes your limited willpower. Every removed temptation preserves it for what matters. Third, replace vague intentions with implementation protocols. Tomorrow, I'll work on the project is too amorphous. When tomorrow arrives, your brain faces a new decision. What exactly to do? When? For how long? This ambiguity creates resistance. Implementation intentions have a specific structure. When situation X arises, I will perform response Y. Research shows people using this format are dramatically more likely to follow through. The formula. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., when I sit at my desk with coffee, I'll open File X and work on Section Y for 25 minutes. Date, time, environmental trigger, specific action, defined duration. This eliminates in-the-moment decision-making. You're not asking, should I work? You're executing a pre-made decision. Write these down. Treat them as appointments with yourself, as binding as appointments with others. The specificity creates accountability and transforms abstract intention into concrete commitment. Fourth, respect attentional limits through structured intervals. Work in 25-minute blocks of complete focus, followed by 5-minute breaks. This respects the natural boundaries of sustained attention. Most people can't maintain genuine focus beyond 25 to 40 minutes. Fighting this reality is counterproductive. The time limit makes commitment feel manageable. Your brain can endure anything for 25 minutes, removing the sense of being trapped in an unbounded work session. The breaks prevent burnout and allow subconscious processing to continue. Often your best insights emerge during these intervals. Fifth, activate social accountability mechanisms. Publicly declare what you'll do and when. This engages deeply rooted social drives. Humans are intensely social creatures who experience genuine psychological discomfort when failing to honor stated commitments. When intentions remain private, only you know whether you follow through. You're skilled at self-justification, rationalization, downward adjustment of standards. External witnesses change this. You face the prospect of admitting you didn't do what you said, and that social discomfort often provides the push needed for action. Find someone for regular check-ins. Not someone who judges, but someone who witnesses. A friend with similar goals, an online accountability group, or even public posting of intentions. The key is specificity and schedule. Every Sunday at 8 p.m., I message Sarah with this week's accomplishments and next week's commitments. Sixth, practice immediate self-forgiveness. When you procrastinate, and you will, self-criticism is counterproductive. Guilt activates neural patterns that increase avoidance. Shame about procrastinating makes your brain want to avoid thinking about the task, increasing future procrastination. Research is clear. Self-compassion produces better outcomes than self-criticism for behavior change. People who forgive themselves for procrastinating are less likely to repeat it. Self-criticism creates cycles where procrastination and shame feed each other. Self-compassion isn't lowering standards or avoiding accountability. It's treating yourself as you treat a struggling friend. You wouldn't call them worthless for procrastinating. You'd acknowledge the difficulty, help them understand what happened, and encourage renewed effort. I procrastinated today. That's human. What made it hard? Was I tired? Was the task too vague? Was my environment distracting? I can address those factors. I'm starting again now. This is pragmatism, not indulgence. If you want to explore building these foundations more deeply, I have a video on the channel about disciplining yourself. It complements what we're discussing here. Discipline and overcoming procrastination are two faces of the same transformation. Conclusion. We've reached the end of this exploration, and I need to be direct about something essential. Procrastination isn't a problem you solve permanently. It's a fundamental tension of human existence. We think about the future, but live in the present. We imagine infinite possibilities, but must choose finitely. We know what we should do, but are governed by systems that prioritize immediate survival over long-term flourishing. This tension is permanent. You'll never become someone who never procrastinates, never feels resistance, never wants to avoid difficulty. Honestly, you shouldn't want to become that person. They wouldn't be recognizably human. What you can become is someone who recognizes procrastination as it happens and has tools to interrupt it. Someone who understands that not wanting to do something doesn't determine whether you do it. Someone who has built systems making action more probable than inertia. Procrastination is human. Conscious action, despite resistance, is freedom. And freedom builds itself one decision at a time, one small action at a time. Not in fantasies about who you'll be someday, but in the reality of what you choose right now. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with me. I hope you carry something from this conversation into your day, into your life. Be gentle with yourself until we meet again.